One of the best games of the year last year, at any point in the season, regular season, postseason, conference championship game, bowl game, playoff, whatever. One of the best games that I watched all of last year was Oklahoma State and Baylor in that Big 12 title game. You guys remember that was the one where Baylor won. Oklahoma State had the ball at the end of the game inside the 10-yard line. They ran. The guy dived for the pylon, and he was like 6 inches short on literally the last play of the game. It's an unbelievable game. Well, rematch of that game coming up this weekend. Of course, you have a rematch of the previous year's conference championship game every single year in the Big 12 because they do the round robin. Right now, they only have 10 teams, so they all play each other. So it's not unusual to get a rematch of the conference championship game. It happens every year, but it's going to be a great game. I did some ACC games yesterday. I'm going to do some SEC games later today, Thursday, so check that out later. Right now, it's the rest of the games that are interesting to me coming up this weekend. Week 5 of the 2022 college football season already. Unbelievable. It's going to be over before you know it. You better enjoy it while you can. We got a Friday night game that I think is going to be really, really good involving 2 undefeated Power 5 teams. Only one of which is ranked, though. Washington on the road at UCLA. That's right. Pac-12 After Dark on Friday night. This one comes on 10:30. Tomorrow night. Washington undefeated, UCLA undefeated. I've been more impressed with Washington this year than I have UCLA. Look at the UCLA crowds, too, that are coming to that games. I mean, they've literally got 2,000 and 3,000 people at some of those games. But anyway, I do think this is going to be a good game. Chip Kelly at UCLA, been there long enough now. All of his players are there. There really are no more excuses. UCLA, to me, has looked downright bad at this time. The 2 worst undefeated teams, I think, might be UCLA and Syracuse. Not that they're bad teams. You don't get to 4-0 if you're terrible, but I don't know if either of those 2 teams are top 25 teams. I'll just be honest with you. Washington, I think, has looked good. 2.5-point road favorite on a Friday night. These are dangerous games, not just in the Pac-12, but these conferences who play conference games during the week. Just go back and look. There are a lot of cases you can look at where a road favorite has gone and lost during the week. The famous Pac-12 situation a couple of years ago, Oregon looked like they were on their way to the playoffs. Around the middle of November, they had to play a road game. I believe it was at Arizona, who was not very good. Oregon goes in there and loses. Playoff hopes out the window on a Friday night. It's happened in the ACC. We see it in these conferences that play these weekday conference games. Washington is only a 2.5-point road favorite here. I'm going to take UCLA. I'm going to hope that since this game is on 10:30 Eastern, which means 7:30 West Coast, a nighttime game on a Friday, prime time out there, I'm going to bank on the fact that the fans actually show up for this game. 2 undefeated teams, a conference matchup, national television. Please, UCLA fans, show up for this game. I'm going to go with the trend and take UCLA here. I think Washington is the better team. And if this game was played in Washington, I'd definitely pick Washington. If this game was played on Saturday, I would pick Washington. Now, the Friday night thing is no guarantee. You can also find examples of a road favorite winning on Friday. I'm just saying, you do see a lot of weird things happen during the week. I'm going to take Chip Kelly to pull one out of the hat here at home. Give me UCLA and the 2.5 points in case it's super close. I'll take UCLA and the 2.5. Moving on to the Saturday games. We'll go in order from some early games all the way up to another Pac-12 game, 11 Eastern. That one is 8 o'clock West Coast time. Let's start at noon, though. A Big Ten matchup. Michigan, who's on a roll lately, on the road at Iowa. Iowa's offense doesn't exist. They've scored a few points over the last couple of weeks against some really, really bad teams. They ain't playing a really bad team this week. I know that Iowa can be a tough place to play, and for whatever reason, teams tend to commit turnovers when they play there, and that's kind of what Iowa relies on to win some of these games there. I don't think that's going to be the case this week. Michigan might turn the ball over a time or two. I mean, McCarthy doesn't have a ton of experience as a starting quarterback. Didn't start any games last year. I don't believe. Cade McNamara, I know, was QB1 last year. I know McCarthy played in a lot of games. I don't think he started any games last year. But he's been starting this year ever since week 2, right? McNamara started week 1. McCarthy started week 2. McNamara got hurt. It's been the J.J. McCarthy show, and so far so good for Michigan. They're undefeated. Beat previously undefeated Maryland last week, 34-27. Blew out the first 3 teams they played. This is Michigan's first road game, so Our first chance, this again, gets back to the quarterback situation. It's one thing to play at home in front of 100,000 friendly fans. It's another thing to play on the road at Iowa in front of, 60,000? I don't know how big their stadium is. 60,000, a hostile environment. That is something to keep an eye on. I'm just not buying Iowa's offense at all. I know, breaking news, right? They got a bad offense. I feel like Iowa would probably have to force 4 turnovers to win this game. 11 points just doesn't seem like enough to me. I know Michigan only beat Maryland by a touchdown last week, and people say, well, how you only beat Maryland's not a terrible team. I mean, in the offseason, I predicted Maryland to beat one of the big 3 teams in the Big Ten East, Michigan, Penn State, or Ohio State. Now, they didn't beat Michigan, but they covered the spread, and it was a 1-touchdown game. I don't think that was necessarily a bad win for Michigan. I think Michigan rebounds this week with a bigger win on the road at Iowa. I'm going to take the favorite here. Give me Michigan, lady 11 points. Yes, I have copious notes, and that's what I'm looking at so I don't forget these point spreads. Big 12 matchup also at noon. Oklahoma on the road at TCU. Can Oklahoma rebound from an embarrassing, humiliating, devastating, and honestly just sad loss last week to Kansas State? Yes, they can. I'm not buying TCU. They bottom of the rung Big 12 team this year, in my opinion. I can name a lot of teams that I think are better than TCU, and Oklahoma's one of them. Oklahoma State, Baylor, Texas, Kansas State. Kansas, too! God, say that. Here, start naming the Big 12 teams that Kansas is better than. You ain't never been able to do that for the last 15 years, but you can do it now. Anyway, I think Oklahoma does rebound here. The offense played well last week against Kansas State. Dillon Gabriel pretty much matched Adrian Martinez blow for blow. That's not surprising. What's surprising is that Adrian Martinez matched Dillon Gabriel blow for... I'm not getting into all that again, but God, Oklahoma defense, man. How do you make Adrian Martinez look like a Heisman candidate? Good news for Oklahoma. I just checked TCU's roster, and there is no Adrian Martinez on there. Got to go on the road. Maybe that's a good thing. After a humiliating loss last week, you don't have to go home and look your home fans in the eye. Less than a touchdown, I can get Oklahoma against TCU. Okay, I'll fall for it. Give me Oklahoma late a 6.5. Back to the Pac-12. Pac-12 is so weird. This game comes on at 2 Eastern, which is 11 a.m. Pacific time. What are y'all doing? It's just dumb all the way around. 2 o'clock Eastern is not a traditional time slot. No one's going to tune into this game because anybody that's watching football at 2 o'clock is in the third quarter of whatever game they started watching at noon. They're not flipping over to this game. I don't understand this. Oregon State on the road at Utah. Utah's a 10-point home favorite. Utah, God, their loss is looking worse and worse every single week. They lost in week 1 to Florida. Cam Rising, the quarterback there at Utah, throws an interception basically on the last play of the game into the end zone there. Florida won. Big win for Sunbelt Billy. The only big win he's got. Because now he's stacking up L's left and right. But they are a 10-point home favorite against Oregon State. Oregon State was undefeated, lost last week in a close game to Southern Cal. What is it, 17-14? Oregon State's not a bad team, but Utah's better, and Oregon State's got to go on the road. 10 points seems like a big number, and I came real close to taking Oregon State here to cover that 10. I am not going to bet this game. I don't bet all these games. I just give you my thoughts on them. Just because I say I'm taking... Michigan minus 11 doesn't necessarily mean I'm actually betting all of these games. These are just games that are interesting to me. So I'm going to take Utah and lay the 10, but man, I'm not very confident on that. That could be a really good game. Moving on to the 3:30 games, one of the best games of the day, regardless of conference. Oklahoma State on the road at Baylor. I talked about this at the top of the video. What an amazing game this was last year. Just an unbelievable game. You got Gundy for Oklahoma State versus Dave Aranda for Baylor. Gundy, is he the longest tenured coach in the Big 12 now? He's got to be. He's been there forever. Pretty consistent, too. Consistently winning 8-9 games. Last year being an obvious exception when they damn near won the Big 12. I expect this to be a good game again. Baylor's a 2.5-point home favorite. That Oklahoma State defense worries me. It really worries me. They lost that coordinator, and we can see by watching Ohio State this year how good of a defensive coordinator Jim Knowles is, because that Ohio State defense was not good last year. Looks a lot better so far this year, in my opinion. And the Oklahoma State defense has given up some points this year. I'm going to take the home team, and I would take the home team in this game no matter who it was. I think I expect this to be another really good game. He can't top the conference championship game. For one thing, that the importance of that game was huge, right, compared to any regular season game because that was a conference championship game. And I don't know if we're going to get an ending like that. I do expect this to be a close game, though. But if I can get the home team here under a field goal, which right now, as of this morning, Thursday morning, Baylor's only a 2.5-point home favorite, I'm going to take Dave Aranda and Baylor lay the 2.5. Can't believe I'm talking about Kansas in Week 5, but here we are coming up also at 3:30. Iowa State on the road at Kansas. Iowa State lost last week to Baylor at home. Now they got to go on the road and play a red-hot Kansas team coming off a win over previously undefeated Duke. What world am I living in? This is some kind of alternate universe we're in here. I'm going to pick Kansas to beat Iowa State. Iowa State is favored. I feel like people are still not giving Kansas the respect they deserve. Their offense is not only really good, it's fun to watch. And Lance Leopold is getting a lot of credit, and he deserves it. The turnaround there is unbelievable. They've won 4 games this year already. We're still in September. They haven't won 4 games in an entire season since, I think, 2009. Their offensive coordinator is another name people need to start paying attention to. I don't know how long Lance Leopold's going to stick it out in Kansas. I'm sure he's going to get some phone calls, but that offensive coordinator is going to be on top of some people's coaching hire lists too. I can get points at home with Kansas right now. I'll do it. Give me Kansas and the 3 points. I'm surprised they're a 3-point underdog here. Now, I don't think Kansas is going 12-0 and remaining undefeated the entire season. I feel the same way about a lot of these teams that are still surprisingly undefeated, like Florida State. They're good teams. They're better than we thought. They're going to lose at some point, and it could be this week. Iowa State is not a pushover. It's just such a good story. I don't want to bet against it. I mean, who is sitting here rooting for Kansas to lose? That's no fun. Give me Kansas and the 3 points at home against Iowa State. Primetime, couple of games here. West Virginia on the road at Texas. West Virginia, an up-and-down team, lost to Pitt. A couple of wins now they've stacked up. Beat Virginia Tech last week handily, too, by the way. Not even really a close game. Texas is expected to get Quinn Ewers back at quarterback in this game. Now, this is key. I don't know that I would bet this game until I know 100% for sure and for certain that Quinn Ewers is playing, because Texas is a 9.5-point favorite in this game. Now, I don't think has West Virginia ever even beaten Texas since joining the Big 12? I don't know, probably. Everybody else has. 9.5 points. If Quinn Ewers is not playing, I would stay away. I think he is going to play. And you can tell me such and such said this and announced that. I don't believe anything anybody says when it comes to injuries anymore until I see a guy play. Maybe that's just because I'm jaded from being a Georgia fan. And, Georgia has players that are coming back soon constantly, and then we don't see them all year long. So, other teams, I'm sure, don't handle injuries with such top secret secrecy, or super secret, top secret secrecy? Top secret secrecy? Isn't that redundant? It is? Okay. Top secret secrecy. I'm going to take Texas in this video with the asterisk that I would wait until right before kickoff to bet this game when I knew Quinn Ewers was playing. But I can get Texas less than 10 here at home. I think Texas is a legitimately good team. You can make the argument that with Quinn Ewers, Texas would be undefeated. We don't know that for sure, clearly. They've got the 1-point loss to Bama where he went down. They've got the humiliating loss to Texas Tech, but those are 2 one-possession losses. The 1 point to Bama, touchdown in overtime or whatever it was to Texas Tech. They're obviously a better team with Quinn Ewers. That's why he was the starting quarterback and not the other guy. I'm going to take Texas, hold my nose here, and lay the 9.5. And finally, 11 o'clock Eastern, which is 8 o'clock Pacific. Stanford on the road at Oregon. Oregon still just sitting on 1 loss. Yeah, terrible Oregon, trash Oregon, not top 25 Oregon. Be lucky to make a bowl game, Oregon. Probably going 4-8 Oregon. Yeah, that Oregon. The Oregon that Georgia beat 49-3 is hosting Stanford. Oregon's a 17-point home favorite. That's too much. That's too much. I do think Oregon will win the game. I don't think they're going to win by 17. Whatever you think about David Shaw, the guy's been coaching forever. Dan Lanning's still in his first year, sort of in a learn-as-you-go type mode there. Would I be surprised if Oregon wins this game 34-10 and covers to 17? No, I wouldn't be shocked, and I'm not going to bet this game. But for the purposes of just picking the games here, give me Stanford on the road and all 17 of those points, and just hope Stanford can keep it within a couple of touchdowns. There you go, my thoughts, previews, and predictions of what I think are some of the biggest games in college football this weekend. Again, I did an ACC ACC version of this video yesterday. You can click back and check that out. And then later today, I'll have another video like this coming out with 4 or 5 of the SEC games that are good this week. And we got some big ones. Arkansas hosting Alabama. You've got Kentucky going on the road to Ole Miss. Both those teams are undefeated, Kentucky and Ole Miss. Texas A&M plays Mississippi State, Auburn and LSU, Georgia and Missouri. You've got some games in the SEC we're talking about. So I'll do one of these videos later today for the SEC. But anyway, hit the thumbs up on this video if you haven't already. Share it with your friends somewhere. Help me grow the channel. I would really appreciate it. And if there's a reason you're not subscribed to Uncle Lou, well, what are you doing? Hit the subscribe button and turn on that bell notification too. And also, have a great day.